Hello, you. Here we are again then, writing at Masters Level 7, Part 2. This one, we're going to be looking at applying literature and sort of paraphrasing what other people have said and quoting what other people have said. Now, from my memory, which is a long time ago now, but my memory of writing like A-level essays and undergraduate essays is that it's sort of all right to quote reasonably long passages. I can remember having like indented quotes, not just like a couple of sentences in a paragraph, but like a whole separate chunk of text that was lifted either from a textbook or like a government report or a white paper or something. That kind of thing doesn't really wash when you're at sort of master's level. So I'm going to show you a paragraph of an essay. Again, I'm going to read it. Again, I'm going to attempt to run a timer so you can just skip my stupid face. No, I'm not on this one, am I? Stupid voice then. Until I'm done, and then we can sort of pull it apart. And then I'm going to sort of talk about my take on it. Now, obviously, I'm not an invigilator or a moderator or any of the other ators that there are, alligator. I can only speak from experience of having written level 7 essays when I was teacher training and them all passing, and having helped quite a few students in the past with their essays, proofreading, but also sort of using track changes to sort of select and highlight areas that could be improved upon and ways in which to do that. So this is the title we're going to be looking at today. You can hear a slight lilt in my voice there. That's because I'm laughing, because this is about the fourth attempt to say this sentence. A critical analysis, yes, of talk for writing in the primary school. So here we go. This isn't the opening paragraph or anything like that. This is just simply a paragraph. So again, I'll talk you through it. Well, I'll read it out to you. And then we will sort of have a look at what's wrong here. So here we go. Start the clock. Children learn texts by heart so they can discuss and pick out teaching points and narrative devices for use later on. The innovation stage focuses on developing, extending and changing parts of a story to create a different version of the story. Invention is used to create a completely new story using all of the devices used in the original text. These processes are carried out in groups at first and then individually once confidence grows. Quote, each and all of these key talk for writing strategies are greatly enhanced and extended by frequent repetition and revisiting, both within literacy lessons and across the curriculum. They also need to be developed and practiced cumulatively and progressively each year so that children build up confidence and skill as they move through the primary school. The national strategies, page 7. So there we go. So that's a paragraph. I think that's about a minute. I haven't as yet figured out a way of stopping the clock earlier than that, so if it hasn't got to a minute, let's just let it finish and disappear. Okay, so let's kind of dig into this. This paragraph is 136 words long, which accounts for, in an average 3,000 word essay, approximately 4%, 4.5% of the total length of the essay. The word count in the bibliography doesn't count. So if your bibliography is 10 words or 1,000,000 words, it doesn't count. So it's just essay, pure essay that counts. So 4% doesn't seem like a huge amount, but 2 paragraphs like this takes us quite close to 10%, which is not far off a tenth of the whole essay. And that's a lot. I know it seems like a lot. 3,000 words does seem like a lot. However, when you're arguing a point and you're commenting upon your own teaching practice and your own experience, your pedagogical experience, and you're referencing other people's work and critiquing it and pitting different people against one another and arguing, this is good, this is bad, here's why, that sort of thing. Actually, when you're into that, 3,000 words isn't that much. Okay, so let's dig into this. One thing immediately bothers me about this paragraph, and that is this. When I get my pen to work. So, all of this quite large chunk of text is a quote, which means, inside the green box, obviously, which means half of this paragraph in your master's level essay is comprised of words that you didn't write. Now, that bothers me, because your master's essay is your way of demonstrating critical thinking, of pedagogical knowledge, of an ability to think critically about your own practice, about the practice of others, about educational theory. That's really what you're doing in your master's essays. You're proving that as well as being able to stand up in front of a room and teach and plan and mark and all that sort of good stuff, you can also do this side of things, the critical thinking, the analysis, the taking of all of these different ideas that you're bombarded with constantly as a teacher, and thinking, right, I'm going to use this idea and this idea because those are going to benefit me and benefit my students. The rest of it I can get rid of because it's not actually going to be of any use. And you will do that. You will have CPD meetings where different people in the school present different things that they do in the classroom, and you just know instinctively that's not going to work with you. That's not your style of teaching, and they're the things that you'll hear that will be really inspiring, and you'll immediately want to get back in the classroom and try things out. That's the nature of teaching. And you aren't doing that in this essay because half of what you've written is someone else's stuff. So the first thing I would do is I would get rid of this quote immediately. That goes. If it's so important to you that you feel like you have to quote something from this paragraph, and it is a paragraph that you're quoting here, I would look through it and try and pick out what exactly is the most important thing, and also how important is it that the thing that you're including from this document, National Strategies, how important is it that the thing that you're including is written in exactly the words it's written in the strategy document. So it reads, each and all of these key talk for writing strategies are greatly enhanced and extended by frequent repetition and revisiting, both within literacy lessons and across the curriculum. They also need to be developed and practiced cumulatively and progressively each year, so that children build up confidence and skill as they move through the primary school. So really what this paragraph is saying is that basically everything that you do as talk for writing as a strategy gets better and has more of an impact the more it's used, the more it's repeated, the more times you go back to it. And that is also the case the more you visit it, both within literacy lessons and in other subjects. And the more you bridge curriculum subjects using the talk for literacy, talk for writing concept, the more impact it has. So for me, I would paraphrase it and I would simply say something along the lines of the talk for writing strategies have been argued to become more effective over a period of time if they're used repeatedly, and also if they're used cross-curricularly. That's not a word, but I'm sure you could probably... Well, maybe it is a word, cross-curricularly. No, it's almost certainly not. That's 60-odd words that are now yours, that you've written, and it shows me that you can read a document and take something from it and then articulate that in your own words, which is a much greater skill than the ability to Control-C, Control-V, which is what's basically happened with this. So that's what I would do. I would either bin it or I would paraphrase it. And that really is the point of this, not lesson exactly, video. Yeah, it's a video. Is the difference between paraphrasing and quoting. Quoting is what you see here in this green box. That is a quote. Now, I don't want to tell Granny to suck eggs. Obviously, you know it's a quote. But the point I'm making is the distinction between a quote and paraphrasing it is that not only does it look nicer, I don't like quotes in essays particularly. I think if you have to quote something, if you're quoting a person who has said a particularly controversial thing or influential thing and you're going to start looking into what that is and whether it's true or whatever else, then yeah, a quote's probably fine. In this kind of context, where it's just a massive block of text, just a massive wall of text, no, get rid of it. Paraphrase it. If you want to argue what this quote is saying, just put it in your own words. You still have to reference it. You'd still need to say in brackets the National Strategy is page 7, but you're not then relying on someone else's words. Now, obviously, in the previous video we talked about how every paragraph should have an argument and should be backed up by some sort of evidence and should reflect on your own teaching practice and so on and so on. This paragraph does not do that. But that's not what we're talking about in this video. In this video we're just talking about quoting. This paragraph as a whole is weak. However, the most important part is this quote, which we must get rid of. And that really is the take home from this video, is massive walls of text that you've lifted out of someone else's work. while a time saver, while you've pasted that in and all of a sudden your word count's gone up from 60 something to 130 something, and you're like, way, I've doubled my word count, I'm nailing this. You really aren't. And yeah, I mean, that's the other thing I would say is this first part. I know we weren't going to talk about this, but I can't leave it. We've scratched this bit. So now we're going to look at, come on, pen. Oh, turn my draw mode off. Silly John. Get yourself together. Right, here we go. So if we look at the first part of this paragraph, so we're sort of ignoring the quote now and just focusing on the bit that we actually wrote. Whee! This is very descriptive. This doesn't really do anything of much use. Children learn text by heart so they can discuss and pick out teaching points and narrative devices for use later on. I'd argue that actually it's the teacher that picks out the teaching points. The innovation stage focuses on developing, extending and changing parts of a story to create a different version of the story. Invention is used to create a completely new story using all of the devices used in the original text. These processes are carried out in groups. Blah, 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 blah. It's really descriptive. Now, yeah, I mean, there's an issue in itself. You're doing an essay about talk for writing. How much of talk for writing do you think you need to actually explain and describe in your essay so that whoever's actually moderating it and reading it and marking it understands what you're saying? Now, logic would say to me that if you're doing a PGCE and you're doing an essay and they've prescribed the essay title to you, they're going to understand what talk for writing is. And so you probably don't need to talk about what it is. Obviously, if you're going to reference certain parts of the mechanics of it, so for instance this idea of reading through a story and repeating it and learning it by rote, if you're going to talk about that in the context of whether that's a good or a bad thing, or in the context of what certain authors have said about it before you start talking about your own experience, or if you're just going to talk about it in reference to your own teaching practice, then yes, a brief explanation might be fine, but really no more than simply saying the process of learning by rote, which is the fundamental part of talk for writing or whatever you do. I would basically just argue this paragraph is too descriptive. All you're really doing is telling me that you've understood what talk for writing is, and given that talk for writing isn't the most complicated thing, I would expect you to understand what it is. I would be much more interested in knowing what you think of it, whether you've used it, what the impact of it was, whether the impact that you found mirrors what you've read in journal articles and research, what research has to say about it, and what you think about those findings. That's what you're supposed to be doing. This is what a talk for writing is. And then here's a massive quote about it. So as I said at the beginning, I think as a paragraph it's quite weak because it doesn't do any of the things a master's essay should be doing. This should start, learning text by rote has been found to be an effective way of learning. Couple of citations, as proven by this guy, whatever. However, there has also been research that says that learning by rote doesn't actually develop any kind of critical thinking or anything. All you're doing is memorizing things. Citation, citation, citation. In my experience in the classroom, I have found that this is actually the case because blah, 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 blah. That's what you should be doing. This paragraph doesn't do any of that. Yeah, it's as I say, it's weak. And also the P on the page number should be lowercase because there isn't a full stop before it.